All right, let's dive into something that's, well, it's kind of fascinating and, honestly, a little terrifying. We're talking about why huge, legendary companies, the titans of their industries, can just suddenly fail. Let's get into it.
I mean, really think about it for a second. We're talking about companies with the smartest people, all the money in the world, the most loyal customers. They check all the boxes, right? They listen to their market, they pour money into new tech, they focus on profit, and then, boom, some tiny little upstart comes out of nowhere and completely blindsides them. How does that even happen?
So, the answer, and this comes from the incredible work of Clayton Christensen, it's not what you think. It has nothing to do with bad managers or dumb decisions. It's actually a paradox, and he called it the innovator's dilemma. The crazy part is, the very things that make a company great are exactly what sets them up to fail.
So here's the heart of it. This is the dilemma. Great companies fail precisely because they do what they're supposed to do. They listen super closely to their best customers, and they throw tons of money at the stuff that's making them the most profit right now. Sounds like Business 101, doesn't it? But doing that, it creates this giant blind spot, and that makes them totally vulnerable to a very particular kind of attack.
Okay, to really crack this puzzle open, we've got to understand one key thing. Not all innovation is the same. There are two totally different kinds. And once you see the difference, that's the real aha moment. It's what makes the whole innovator's dilemma click into place.
First up, you've got what's called sustaining innovation. This is the bread and butter of big, successful companies. They are amazing at this. It's all about making good products even better for their best customers. You know, the ones who pay top dollar. Think about Intel making their processors just a little bit faster every year, or Apple bumping up the megapixels on the new iPhone camera. It's steady, it's predictable, it makes a ton of money, and it's exactly what they're built to do.
And then you've got disruptive innovation. This is the wild card, the total troublemaker. It doesn't even try to play the same game. Instead, it pops up with something that's way simpler, way cheaper, and way more convenient. A great example is the first clunky digital cameras versus Kodak's beautiful film. And here's the absolute key. When you measure it by the standards of the main market, it just looks, well, worse. It's not as good. So when you put them side by side, you can see the trap. Sustaining innovation is all about going upmarket, chasing those high-end customers with better and better performance. Disruptive innovation, it goes after the customers nobody else wants, the ones at the low end, or it creates a whole new market from scratch. Their goals are just on different planets. And because of that, the big established companies just look at the disruptor and go, meh, who cares? Until it's way, way too late.
So how does this whole David and Goliath thing actually go down? Well, there's a playbook. There's a pattern that these disruptors follow to take down the giants. And honestly, once you learn to see it, you'll start spotting it happening everywhere. Disruptors usually come in through one of two doors. The first is called low-end disruption. This is where they target overserved customers. You know, people who are forced to pay for all these high-end features they don't even need or use. The disruptor comes in with a much cheaper, good enough alternative. Think about how Netflix, with its simple little DVDs by mail, took on Blockbuster's giant, expensive stores. The other door is new market disruption, which is almost sneakier. It creates a market where one didn't exist before by going after non-consumers, people who just couldn't use the old product because it was too expensive or too complicated. That's exactly what the personal computer did. It brought computing into our homes, not just to the big corporations.
And let's circle back to that really crucial point. Disruptors don't show up and try to fight the big guy head on. That would be suicide. They start by offering something that, by all traditional measures, is just worse. It gets them a little foothold in some tiny niche market that the big companies completely ignore because, frankly, there's not enough money in it for them to even bother.
Now, these performance lines show you exactly how the trap gets sprung. See that blue line? That's the big established company, just steadily marching upward, making its product better and better for those demanding customers. But look at the red line. That's the disruptor. It starts way down here with much lower performance, but its rate of improvement is way faster. And then it hits this critical point. It crosses the line of what the mainstream market, not the high end, but most people, considers good enough. And by the time that happens, it's already a lot cheaper and easier to use. That's it. That's the moment the whole game slips.
But you gotta understand, this isn't just a technology story. At its core, real disruption is driven by a completely different business model. The disruptors come in with a new way of creating value, a totally different cost structure that lets them be way cheaper, and they often build a new kind of relationship with their customers. They're not just playing the game differently, they're changing the rules of the entire industry. Okay, so if you're sitting inside one of these big, successful companies, this probably sounds terrifying. And for good reason. So how on earth do you spot these threats when they start out looking so tiny and unimportant?
Well, let's talk about how you can actually train yourself to see the future. The key is you have to look on the edges, on the periphery, in the places you'd normally never look. This means doing stuff like digging into patent filings to see what new ideas are bubbling up. It means tracking where the smart venture capital money is going. And it means paying really close attention to those weird little niche markets that everybody else thinks are a joke, because that's where the future is being built, right under your nose. You know, a really powerful tool for this is what Christensen called the jobs to be done framework. The idea is to stop asking, what product are my customers buying, and start asking, what job are they hiring my product to do? His classic example is perfect. Nobody wants to buy a quarter-inch drill bit. What they want is a quarter-inch hole. They hire the drill bit to do that job. When you think like that, it just blows open your perspective, and you start seeing all these new ways to solve that core problem, which is exactly what a disruptor is looking for.
All right, so let's say you've done it. You've spotted a potential disruptor on the horizon. Now what? The clock is officially ticking. So let's run through the survival guide. What can a big company actually do when it's facing this kind of existential threat?
But first, we have to be real about why this is so incredibly hard. Your entire company, every process, every spreadsheet, the whole culture, it's all been perfected to serve your existing, most profitable customers. So when a disruptive idea comes along that targets a tiny market with razor-thin margins, your company's immune system just naturally attacks and kills it. Your own success literally creates antibodies that fight off the very thing that could save you.
So what are your options? There are really 4 main moves. 1, you can just buy the disruptor. But, and this is a huge but, you have to let it operate on its own. Otherwise, your corporate culture will just smother it. 2, you can create your own disruptor. Spin off a totally separate autonomous business unit and let them go after the new market with their own rules and their own budget. 3, you can try to innovate from within, but as we just said, that is notoriously difficult. And number 4, you can form partnerships or alliances to get your hands on the new tech and learn from the outside.
And we have to zoom out for a second, because this isn't just a business school case study. Disruptive innovation has huge impacts on all of us, on society. It literally reshapes the world. Sure, it can lead to job losses in old industries, but it also creates entirely new ones. And it forces us to ask some really tough questions about things like data privacy and what happens when so much power ends up in the hands of just a few companies. The ripples go way beyond the boardroom.
Which brings us to the final and maybe most important question, the one for you. Think about your own industry, your own job. Are the customers being overserved? Are they paying for features and complexity they don't really need? Is there a simpler, cheaper, more convenient way to get the job done? Is your industry's good enough moment right around the corner? Because if it is, the absolute worst thing you can do is pretend it's not happening.